Next up is our amazing marketing panel. We have brought together top minds in the marketing arena to speak to you about marketing in the past, present, and future. Marketing is always changing, and PJ, Ben, AJ, and Jen are just the people you'll want to listen to learn tips and tricks for your company during these changing times. Jen, take it away.
Hey, welcome to our marketing panel. Marketing in 2020, the vital pieces of your marketing strategy needed to succeed in 2020. I'm Jen Gray. I have been doing marketing and tech for almost 10 years and currently run product marketing and communications here at Weave. And we're really excited. We have an incredible panel here today of marketing experts. And we've actually got PJ, AJ, Ben, and Jen. So we may do a jingle, so everyone look forward to that coming after this. But if you want to just kind of introduce yourselves, a little bit about yourself and your background. Start with PJ.
Yeah, I'm PJ Howland. I run a good chunk of the content marketing at 97th Floor. We're a digital marketing agency. And my background has been SEO, content marketing, and kind of the sweet spot in between those two. And right now I'm really doing a lot of brand storytelling, content marketing, that whole thing for an agency. So it's very cool. I kind of have an in-house job within an agency.
AJ Wilcox. I run an ad agency called b2linked.com, and we specialize just in LinkedIn. So lots of experience in LinkedIn ads, a bit in organic, and then kind of spanning all of paid social. It's an exciting area. And my background before that was in SEO, so a little bit of a split.
Ben Ard, Senior Director of Demand here at Weave. Had an agency background, switched to in-house marketing and love demand generation and growing businesses from the marketing side.
Excellent. And what I think is interesting is we talk about marketing every day. Like, this is jargon we know, these are things that we talk about. Translating that to small business owners that may not have the budget or time to hire a dedicated marketing person, they're doing a lot of these things that we do on a shoestring budget in their spare time when they can. So I'm curious, let's start with the biggest lesson you all have learned in 2019 for marketing campaigns.
For me, it's a great question. I think for small business owners, the most important thing you can do with a campaign is actually find the right audience. You don't want to spread a message to a ton of people and just have it be irrelevant. If you can hone in and find where your target customer really is and just communicate with them, it tends to be much more helpful and a much better relationship in marketing.
For sure. I think I'd agree with that. Almost that small business owners or people within a small organization have a little bit of an advantage because they know the customer better. They're closer to it, I think. And to me, that's a weak point in marketing as a whole. I think a lot of places just don't understand the end of the journey, you know what I'm saying? And if you're at a small organization, that's what got you into business, right? And if you're wearing a lot of hats, I think that's kind of a good thing because one of those hats is bound to get you down closer to the end user. And I think that actually helps you produce a better marketing strategy.
In social, what I've learned in this last little while is that you can't go after someone with a bottom of the funnel, like talk to sales kind of pitch. It's worked in the past. It may still work for 5% of companies, but so many clients that we've had where we test that strategy, we always have to go default back to how can we provide value, how can we seek to be helpful first before we ask for anything. And I think that's something that we're going to have to learn as marketers in general, is how do we provide value first before we expect anything from someone.
Oh, that's great. Speaking of social and channels, like, what do you think are the vital channels? Like, if you could pick 3 for a small business owner, what are the 3 that they should probably be maximizing right now?
That's so hard.
No.
I feel like it's hard because you knew this was coming. Is that it depends, right? And it depends on where your people are. To me, I feel like, and you'll love this, I feel like LinkedIn is underrated and is going, and it really does have a future, especially in organic social. As I play in the social space, I see Facebook, saying like, hey, it's more pay to play. Twitter's got, the linear posts and things like that. And LinkedIn is actually pretty gracious with the amount of organic impressions that a brand can get. I see that a lot. And so I won't go as far to say what the other 2 are. Maybe I'll leave that to you guys. But I really do like LinkedIn, especially from an organic perspective for brands.
I'm going to cheat a little. I wouldn't call this a social channel per se, but Google reviews. I think if you're a business that has a physical location, the number one thing you can do is collect reviews from your actual customers, give them a good experience, reply to those reviews, make sure you have a good presence there. And those rankings do so much for bringing business in your door, whether you're a dentist, optometrist, or just like a massage therapist. If you have a physical location, that's always my first thing, is make sure you have a good Google Places presence.
Yeah, I think that's basically the biggest one that everyone should be investing in. I'll kind of cheat and say Facebook in general, because Facebook has so many tools to be local. They have their own local listings. So if you're a local business, if you're on Google and Facebook, you're already off to a great start. And definitely agree on LinkedIn. It's just not quite as like geocentric.
Sure.
But
Definitely has that B2B focus too.
Yeah. Oh, but man, LinkedIn right now it's the easiest network in the world to go viral on if you're sharing personally. So if you want exposure, like that's the network to be on. It's not gonna be limited to your geography. It's gonna go to all of your connections.
So follow up with that, what's your favorite kind of content on LinkedIn? Like, what have you seen do extremely well on that platform?
It's all over the board. What I've found is, really the mechanism for virality on LinkedIn is all about comments. So what kind of content can you share that elicits a comment? Some of the ones that I'll share two examples. One is a vote. Like you can put up two pictures. I have a podcast that just launched, and I showed two different thumbnails and said, hey, what do you guys like? Should I do A or should I do B? And tons of comments came in of people saying A, B. I mean, everyone has a design opinion. And then of course, LinkedIn looks at that post and goes, wow, there's a lot of conversation going on here. Let's boost it to his network and his network's network, and it goes crazy viral. The other one is, rather than just linking to something, say, because anytime you link off of the platform goes, you're taking traffic away from us. Let's not let that go viral. But instead what you can say is, hey, I have this going on, or I have this piece of content, comment below if you're interested. And of course it takes a lot more work to go through and reach out to every single person in the thread and offer them something, but then your post gets seen by tens of thousands of people rather than the hundreds that would have seen it if you link.
That's clever. That's really good.
That is clever. I think I'll go old school with email, because I think about a lot of the small businesses that I interact with. I may not follow my florist on Instagram, so it's hard to reach me. But I love welcome emails, like from my dentist, like, hey, welcome, here's my team, here's my dentist, here's the front office manager that you'll most likely see every day. Yeah. Here's where we're from and hobbies, really personal content I sort of love. And seasonal, I got a Halloween email from my dentist, and that was great. It had no CTA. It was just hey, we're looking out for your teeth. We know you're gonna eat a ton of candy. I was like, yeah, that's great. My dentist is great. He remembers me, and I think email is just an interesting medium and platform to reach your audience when you may not see them every day.
Yeah.
Good point. So speaking of campaigns, and I think it can be really intimidating to build a campaign. How do you build to scale? How do you not bite off more than you can chew?
I feel like build to scale is something that everyone wants to do, and it's easier said than done. And so I think that's a worthy goal, but I think before that is build what is worth scaling, if that makes sense. And so, if you're business to business, a case study where you're trying to collect leads off of it might be the route to go. And when you're doing that, it's really, I feel like, more worth it, instead of finding the time to, how am I going to scale this? How am I going to get a dozen of these out the door, to figure out how to nail it with one or two of these. 2 or 3 would probably be great, because then you can figure out what worked, what didn't, test them against each other. But figuring out what works well, I think then sets you up to scale it better. You're going to learn so much more from that campaign that you won't need to make that mistake again as you scale it. You know what I mean?
For me, I actually never think about scalability up front. For me, I always try to find the right thing to do, the right way to connect with people to get the right results, even if it's just really small up front. And then I'll figure out how to scale it afterwards, once I know it works. Because I don't want to take all the time to automate or build process or try all these things when I may never actually see success on that platform. But if I can go in and try things like manually, like on LinkedIn, I'm actually sharing every single comment. You're not worried about scalability up front. You'll figure that out once you have 20,000 comments, and you'll figure out a system, but you might not need to worry about that until you actually see success.
I've got an acronym I really like, AMO, like bring your ammo to social marketing. And the concept is you need 3 things for any successful social campaign. You need to know your A, audience, your M, your message, and O, your offer. And so what you're talking about is have something actually of substance that people want to interact with. That's like that offer portion. That is like if we have campaigns on LinkedIn, if we have a good offer, we can screw the messaging up. You could put the poop emoji in there, you could have misspellings, and the offer will still convert. It will still get people to click. So for me, same exact deal is start with an offer that works, that actually provides value, actually solves a pain point, then figure out which audiences see it. And it's really easy to scale your audiences. You can always find new people through new platforms. And then the messaging, all it is just distilling down, here is the offer we have, here's why it's valuable to you. And you can run all kinds of tests around messaging.
It's almost like the product does the marketing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've actually heard something really interesting recently. When you're trying to find the right offer, it should be a little scary.
Yeah.
You should be a little afraid to offer it, because that's exactly what your customer wants, and there's a reason you're a little afraid. Yeah. So I think it's fun to experiment with that offer and get uncomfortable, because odds are your customer is going to love it, and it's going to pay back in just tons of dividends.
I like that.
What are some offer examples?
The stuff that works really well on LinkedIn can't promise for any other channel, but we see like a free checklist or a cheat sheet is really easily consumable, and people are excited to jump into it. Webinars still work, surprisingly. Like people are willing to hop on and watch 30 to 60 minutes of content. Things like an ebook, a guide. Guides work really well. Even if you have something called an ebook, just call it a guide instead, because it feels a little bit more like I'm holding your hand to walk you through something.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. I'm going to take that one.
I think one of the things that you want to be careful of is with guides. Ultimate Guide's super popular.
Yeah.
Ultimate guide.
Right? You see that everywhere. The thing to be careful of is a lot of lazy marketers will be like, I'll just scrape half a dozen things from the blog, put them in an ebook, give it to design, they'll make it pretty, I'm going to collect 100 leads off of this. And people find that and it's not good marketing. You know what I mean? And you're left frustrated. It's not helping you as a brand. Maybe it helped you on your spreadsheet because you got 100 leads in, but ultimately it fell flat. And so I think, I love that, and I'm going to use that. Again, is like be a little bit afraid about it. Like put your best stuff out there, and really make sure that it goes back to the first point. You got to know your audience, and it should fix a problem for them.
And I think the vast majority of times when you're doing a campaign, it's probably to acquire new customers. So that offer, you need to make it so compelling that you get them in the door for the first time, because you probably provide an excellent service, have an excellent business, have an excellent staff. You train them. This is your bread and butter. This is why you went into business. And if you can just get them in the door, you're going to wow them. And then getting them back is infinitely easier than getting them through the door for the first time. So that's where the offers that I love. Like if I need new tires, give it 50% off, and you can guarantee if I have a good experience, every time I need tires, I'm going back to the same group because I know what to expect. But that's where the uncomfortableness comes into play. It's hard to lose a little bit of money on that first interaction, but if you get them in the door and you wow them, you have them for life.
And there's so many stats too about how much it costs to acquire a new customer versus retaining them. So it's worth spending a little bit more up front, and then to keep your lifetime value of your customers after that.
Yeah.
I think marketing is interesting because everyone thinks about marketing as getting new customers. What do you guys think about engaging your current customers with marketing?
That's the future of marketing.
Yeah.
I really do feel like that. I mean, because 2, 5, 10 years ago, everything was new and cool, and it was just about get there first and be loud and you'll get noticed. And now we're just not there anymore, and it's obnoxious and ingenuine when you're there and you're loud. So what you want to be is where your customers are. And I love that you brought up email, because that's one of those things that it sounds dated, and some people like yawn when they hear email. Like, really, what's new about email? A lot, actually. There's a lot you can do with email. And I think just being there to highlight who you are, who your people are, why you got into business in the first place, like that's the future of it, because word of mouth marketing is still so big. And if you're delighting your current customers, that's where a lot of that comes from. And word of mouth marketing doesn't always mean you get new leads from it or whatever, you know what I mean? But having a good name out there comes from delighting who you already serve.
And the platforms are helping us out so much with this, like, delighting our current customers, re-engaging them, because now pretty much every ad platform has the ability to upload your email addresses back in.
Yep.
And so we're not just reliant on email to try to stay on top of them. Once we have their email address, you can upload it into Facebook, into Google, into Twitter, Quora, LinkedIn, and now we actually have a mechanism to stay in front of them that's not just boring email,
That's cool.
And I think what's cool about that is you have to be okay taking budget to spend money on advertising to your current customers. Don't be afraid of doing that, because that's why people resort to email. Email works so well, but it's free. But if you have this audience, it's okay to pay money to your customers to delight them, to provide new value, give them additional offers, even if they're your customers. It's really okay. Some people are so afraid to spend that budget, and it really is money well spent.
Well, also, what business is out there that doesn't have a model where customers can scale up and grow with you? Everybody does that, right? So even if you are marketing customers, it's still not a sunk cost, because you can get more out of them too.
And the nice thing is, when you're uploading these audiences, they're usually pretty small, and social, you've got a small percentage of people when you show ads that will click on them. So all in, I mean, you're talking about very small amounts of budget that you have to spend on these campaigns, but they pay off like crazy.
What are some of the technology or platforms that you see as a possible way to leverage current customer nurturing, current customer marketing in 2020?
Obviously the email channel, I think, is a huge opportunity. I think text messaging is a channel that we don't talk about very often. People like communicating via text messages. And it used to be a little awkward to have a business texting with an actual individual, but now it's okay. Even on Google, you can put a texting number right there in your business listing, and before you even know them, you're texting them and say, my tooth hurts, I need help, or I need some flowers, it's my anniversary. And you can have those conversations via text message. It's okay. Like, people want to engage with you, and there are platforms that let you scale those conversations and make it easier. But it's a cool channel that's starting to emerge that people really feel comfortable, as long as you're not spamming them. If it's a genuine one-to-one good message that provides value, it's a great platform. However, it is super dangerous if you spam, mass message, and do it wrong. So I think that's why people don't play around with it a ton, because that's all they think text messaging is. But if you just do it in a genuine, possibly not very scalable way, it actually works out quite well.
I 100% agree. I think texting, if you are being really intelligent about it, you're still going to have like 90+% open rates on it, as opposed to email where like you're lucky if you get 5-10%. Yeah. 30, that's awesome. I want to be part of the campaigns you're running. Mine maybe not doing so great, but
Well, that's where things are going. I know it's such a buzzword, but millennials want to do business via text. I do. I don't want to call. That sounds really intimidating to me.
Right.
Like, I want to go online and schedule my appointment myself. I want to have someone text me to confirm it. I don't want to, Y for yes, N for no. I want someone, I say thumbs up, ready to go. I'll see you Tuesday. And they're like, great, see you Tuesday. And we get a reminder. That's how I want to engage with businesses.
Yeah, I like that. I think from a broader standpoint of like what tools are really going to shine, I see a trend in the marketing world where a lot of very old platforms continue to act like old platforms. Platform meaning something where it meets 12.5 needs. You see this a lot in content planning software, SEO software, even to some extent some PPC management software, where it's like we do 1.5 million things and we're all okay at them. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of these disruptors out there. So I feel like the marketing technology stack is going to look different in this new decade, in that we're going to have to diversify more And well, maybe not, but I feel like until platforms can adopt and go back to like the ninja skills route, the marketing technology stack will look like, I used to have this platform that did these 5 things really well, and now I've got 3 tools that cost less, but they do their thing and they just kill it. And so it's going to suck because we're all going to have to remember a bajillion more passwords, but I think until platforms can realize that, like, oh, it turns out there's actually a lot of people that do what we do, and it turns out we're all pretty mediocre at it, you know what I mean? Then they start getting back to, this is why we got in business in the first place. Let's solve this one thing and then take it slow and then go after that, not just try to start with the whole scaled approach.
And I think the exception to that is going to be softwares that utilize the advantage of consolidation. So if you have a software tool that does 5 things terribly, it's only convenient because it's one login. Mm-hmm. But if those 5 things communicate with each other and it provides additional value by having it consolidated, that's where the real value is going to shine, that data collaboration, the data sharing. But I do agree 100%. You're better off just having 10 different services if your consolidated service doesn't take advantage of the fact that it has data, email, communication, all that kind of stuff in one place, where you can learn from that and really enjoy the customer journey all in one location and make it much better.
And that complete customer view is incredibly powerful. Like, I love my experiences crafted from businesses I interact with that know the last time they texted me, the last appointment I had, my last Google review I left, because then you know exactly, you're not just trying to pick from every channel. Okay, great. We've talked a lot about campaign structure, just like knowing your audience, technology that you can leverage. I want to dig back into content. I'd love to know just sort of like things people could do tomorrow, because content can seem really intimidating, like a guidebook. How do I even start writing that? Something that I saw recently on Instagram was a business, it was a spa, did like a tour of the office on Instagram, which I loved. It was like, here's a waiting area. So if you have a kid, you can bring them and they can just kind of sit there while you go to your appointment. This is the front desk, just to kind of give you an idea. And I loved that. It was simple and really engaging. So I want to know just kind of really simple content ideas for all the channels we've talked about.
One thing I noticed that's really cool is as businesses become more personal and they engage with their customers via text messaging, things like that, their content has shifted to a more personal voice. And I think that's really valuable. It used to be that you had such a formal voice when you wrote to these audiences because you represented a business and it was so complex. Exactly. But now it's fun to like throw in jokes and use I terminology when you're writing these things because it's a relationship and that's what you're trying to build. And I love that trend, especially when like with social media, people feel comfortable with that. That's not just this business account, but it's the dozen people that make up that account that you get to know them. And you really engage with that. So that's something I really like that I think content can really improve on.
And I think it's a step further from maybe what people would assume, and that like, oh yeah, my CRM lets me insert your first name because I know your first name. Like, it's got to be more than just like, hey Ben, like you knew about, you know what I mean? And you hit it on the head when you said it's really about the whole product. Like when you say personalization, it doesn't just mean insert a first name in there. You know what I mean?
Which is often mistaken. Like, it's like a high Bart, you know?
Yeah.
Email.
True. On B2B, I see a lot of like starting the content is just going and figuring out what is the pain point or what are the major curiosities that your customer feels and how can you solve that? So can you solve it in a webinar, or is it better as a white paper, or is it better as a guide or a checklist? In B2C, I think it really comes down to what's interesting to your customer. The tour of the spa, that was interesting to you way more than something like, hey, we're gonna do a webinar about like a spa treatment or something. Exactly. Yeah, so be interesting. And if the format that being interesting takes is you taking selfie with your iPhone, rough video that's like with bad audio or whatever, great, do it and just start somewhere.
I also think it's cool if you're a part of the conversation online and with your audience. Sometimes we create the content and then try to force it on the audience, but there are these conversations going on and there'll be a specific thread. And there'll be people talking about, oh, I have this and this a problem. It's okay to jump in and say, okay, I'm going to write a content just for these 20 people. Yeah. I'm going to write this article. I'm going to drop it and say, I heard your conversation. In fact, I quoted half of you anyways. Here's your content. Here's where I think you can benefit. And it's really cool because you can create really niche pieces of content instead of trying to please everybody with giant pieces of broad content, which I think is a lot of fun.
And if 20 people care about it, others do too. It's not wasted just on 20 people. It's genuinely interesting.
Right.
I would say something that small businesses that are maybe transitioning into medium-sized business or growing rapidly, something that they can do today, tomorrow, this week to one-up their content marketing effort is make personas. And it seems really basic, like if anyone studies like marketing or any communication degree in school, it's like personas are important. And then a lot of people get dropped into the real world and they just don't happen. At 97 Florida, the agency I work at, I've had kickoff calls with probably over 60, 70, 80 clients throughout the 5 years I've been client-facing there. And one of the questions we ask in pretty much every kickoff call is like, do you have personas? And I could count on one hand how many times someone has said, yeah, let me send them to you. And then it's even less that those are good. And it's crazy, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I've worked with some large brands, and they don't have it. And that's kind of frightening, and personas are so powerful. The reason why I say it's so good for a small business that's kind of growing is because if you're a small business and you've maybe got half a dozen or a dozen people in there, you've all, like I said, you wear all different hats, and you've all grown like knowing who the core customer is. But as that grows, you got to hire and bring more people on. And guess what? Your new hire doesn't know who they are. And now, a year later, your new hire has her own team. You know what I mean? And without that persona, without it getting distilled, it can get lost. And I think that's what leads to what we might call lazy marketing or, passive marketing or whatever. It's just, it's just because people don't know. And if you just take a step back, especially in the formative years of the business, to create those personas is going to help you. And it doesn't say they have to be set in stone. Personas should be living documents, but starting them, I think, is important.
What are the key components to a persona?
So you're going to want to know a variety of things. And so I'll name a few things, and I see you guys nodding your heads too, so I want to let you jump in too. But some of the things that I think are very important are you're going to want to know their business needs. If you're B2B, I'll just say B2B for this scenario, but you're going to want to know what their business needs are, things like their position. And beyond their position, like what does that actually mean? Because job positions don't mean a lot anymore. It's more like, what do you actually, role. It's like, what do you actually do in your day-to-day job? And then one of the things that we do a lot is we will literally write out like a mock day of what this person's day looks like. And that helps us really visualize like, all right, at 12:30, that's when her pain point hits, And it's not like we use 12:30 to market or something like that, but knowing how people's days fall, I think really helps you actually make them a person.
The one thing I really like with personas, and this is small, but I think it goes a long way, is every persona, give it a name.
Sure.
Like it's Doug, it's Susan, it's Betty, and that way when you're having conversations, that way when you're visualizing it, you're thinking of a person. It's not this broad stroke of a general audience, it's real people. I think it goes a long ways to just give them names and try to find names that are actually common to your audience or even have a specific customer in mind. But that goes a long ways to just give it a name.
Yeah. That also helps when you're in team meetings, so you don't have to be like, oh, the guy that's in his 40s that has this problem. You can say Doug, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love pain points for personas. Like my daughter's orthodontist has one day that they're open later. And that's their differentiator. And that's what I love because they know that their persona is the Jen who works full-time and can't get to the orthodontist at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Sure.
And I love that. That's their differentiator. And it's been part of their personas too. We cater to working professionals, young parents, working parents. And I think that's such a great thing to pivot around for your content.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Speaking of, I guess, starting small for 2020, I want to know key components to run a successful test. So if you want to just start something small and measure quickly and pivot, what are kind of the metrics that you guys go to first for a test?
So I really love testing and experimentation. For me, what I always recommend is get every idea out. Like don't feel like the first idea is the first experiment that you have to run. Often it's not the best idea. Get them all laid out and then start to measure things like what's going to be the impact? How easy is this going to be? And then you find the best score And then you know the next test to perform. It helps you prioritize these little experiments. And then as you go, I would always recommend knowing the starting metric. It can be really difficult, it can take time, but the worst thing is running a test or an experiment and not knowing if it worked. Just at the end of the day, you're like, I felt like it was cool. I have no idea. But if you said, I know exactly how many people are going with this offer, here's how many I want to go with this offer, I'm going to try this to get there. It's okay if your experiment failed, but at least you know it did, and at least you know why, so you can fix it the next time around. Those are things I think people just skip over way too often.
And I really like starting with what matters most. So I know, at least in B2B, my offers are going to make the biggest difference. I can have one offer that converts at 7% and another that converts at 35%. And if I'm just testing ad copy against both of those two offers, I may be able to sway performance by 5 to 15%. So my best use of a test is start with testing offers against each other, and then when you find the winning offer, when you find the thing that people actually care about, now start testing ads. Don't just throw a whole bunch of like lame, red versus blue image tests at it, when that might make 0.2% difference.
Sure. And you alluded to this, but I think don't be afraid to throw some money behind it. Yeah. If you're going to test, I mean that's actually a pretty good time to, and it could be a couple $100, it could be $1,200, but get some money out there to throw it on whatever network is going to make the most sense, because quick data is going to save you time, which is money in the long run.
Yeah, especially with something like LinkedIn, where we can so be specific about reaching a very a specific type of persona. So I can literally say I'm going to show the same ads to marketing managers, directors, VP, and CMOs, and I'm going to observe each of those groups separately, and I can find, hey, CMOs don't care about this at all, but wow, managers sure do, and that can help you plan all of your content. And all you had to do was spend a few $100, showing content to very specific segments.
Right. And if you're a small business, local business, something that's really fun and easy is literally, if people are coming in and out, just ask them, hey, if I had these two offers, which one would you pick? Huh? And it's like, okay, great, that's free. That's easy information, that's a quick test. If 5 out of 5 pick that, it's probably a pretty good idea, and then throw a little bit of money behind it. But it's super simple, and you can tell people this is just a test. I'm not gonna give this to you for sure, but people love to be a part of that. They want to feel like they're helping their local business, and they're more than happy to do it.
That's brilliant. Okay, last question for everyone. If you could pick one thing that small business owners could do tomorrow to improve their marketing strategy, what would it be?
I'm going to go with just the personalization back to whatever channels you're currently on. So I wouldn't even say tomorrow is the day to invest in a new channel. If you're not on TikTok, tomorrow, that's okay. Tomorrow you don't have to get on TikTok. But nail what you currently have, because if you're a small business, you've already proven that you're valid, and that the channels that you have are at least worth your time. And so figuring out what are the things that I can test, and figuring out how can I personalize that and make it. And personalization, again, doesn't just mean drop a first name in there. It actually means solving a business problem. But just so I guess the action item is take a look at what you're currently doing and find one channel or one avenue within there and figure out what am I doing just because I've always done it, and really analyze that and think critically about it and do something a little bit different.
I would say create something. It's so easy as a small business owner to focus on your own business operations problems, your employees, all of those things, and you may forget to just be out there making human connections, whether it's sharing on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, or attending in-person networking events. Just do something outside the company, because the stuff that happens outside the company makes connections that fuel your internal.
For me, what I would say is figure out how to make your customer just a little bit happier. I think word of mouth and recommendations are going to fuel your business more than any marketing channel. And if you can just constantly, day in and day out, say, how can I make my customer experience that much better? That word of mouth will help grow your business exponentially, because these are communities. Even if it's not a geographic community that you serve, there are online communities and groups of people where people that have common interests go together, and they will talk about you because they had such an excellent experience. And that's not common. that people have a wonderful experience. So if you provide that and just ask every day, how do we make it a little bit better? It ends up paying a lot of money.
I love that. And I'll piggyback on that. I think one thing that business owners could do tomorrow is walk through your experience. Walk through what that was like. Find your page on Google, see what it says, see what the reviews you see first, see what it's like waiting in your waiting room, how your receptionist greets you, what's the email that you get after your first appointment or your first service or your first booking, and kind of figure out what that feels like for a customer end to end, and then pick a few places to improve.
And try to look at it through fresh eyes, because
Yeah,
you see your
unbiased.
same waiting room, but try to just reset your brain, approach it as someone who's never been there before, and that'll teach you a lot.
Or just run and grab someone off the street. You want $50? Come sit in my waiting room and tell me what you like. It's an awesome idea, because they just got $50. They're going to tell you what they think.
Yeah, you're right. Be completely candid,
Yep.
unbiased. Okay, well, great. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was great chat, and I think marketing can oftentimes feel really intimidating, I think, for someone that doesn't do it on a day-to-day basis. But I think these are some really great tools and takeaways to do tomorrow with little to no budget. So thank
Very
you.
cool. Where can people find you guys? Online, social channels, LinkedIn, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter is my favorite platform. I think Twitter's doing all right. But to ask PJ Howland on Twitter, and then I'm pretty active on the 97th floor communities as well.
Right. I'm Wilcox AJ on Twitter, and of course I'm on LinkedIn. Just search AJ Wilcox, and if
You better show up first.
You see a chubby ginger, it's probably me. So,
Pretty much any channel, it's at Benjamin Ard. LinkedIn, Twitter, my name's unique enough that no one took it, so that's where I'm at.
Same with me. It's Jen L. Gray at Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Great.